It's one of the world's most pressing questions. How do we stop ISIS? Well, part of the answer may be in knowing thy enemy and understanding what they're really after. Joining us this morning with some new insights is terrorism expert Lieutenant Stephen Rogers and also journalist Robert Evans. Robert Evans is the editorial manager of Cracked.com. He's joining us via Skype this morning. And Robert recently published an article about his findings after reading every single issue of ISIS's self-published magazine. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, Robert, I want to start with you. You read 700 pages that you described as being quite odd, but also very revealing, all this propaganda. What stood out to you the most by reading all their magazines?
Probably what stood out to me most was the sheer honesty of their portrayal of what awaits fighters who join the Islamic State. It's not like they're sugarcoating it. These people aren't joining ISIS thinking that they're going to live a long life. Like every article about a suicide bomber or a jihadi includes a picture of that person's corpse after they, died doing whatever it is they were going to do. So that that kind of shocking, brutal honesty was really surprising to me. That they're very open about what awaits anyone who joins their cause, and people are still flocking to their banner.
Let me ask you a simple question that maybe isn't so simple, but I think it's so very important for all of us to understand. What ultimately does ISIS want?
I would say, based on what I've read, it seems as if their ultimate goal is to provoke the United States into an armed confrontation in Syria and Iraq. The name of the magazine, Dabiq, is a place, a town in Syria, where, according to prophecy, there was going to be a great apocalyptic battle between the armies of Rome, which they translate to be the United States and its allies, and the armies of the Caliphate. So that's seems to be their primary, not just goal. They see it as an inevitability that the United States will invade and that they will, fight directly with the American army.
Okay, Lieutenant Rogers, I want to bring you into the conversation here, because how do you fight an enemy that is happy to die, willing to die, wants confrontation? How do you take on that kind of enemy?
Well, first of all, we've got to recognize, when I say we, the White House all the way down to lower-level politicians, have to recognize who our enemy is. You take them out by using overwhelming military force on their headquarters, their supply lines, where their bases of operation are in the Mideast. Here in the homeland, you've got to get police officers engaged in the war on terrorism through training, and but I think most importantly, our political leaders have to call it like it is and eliminate them quickly. You
were talking about shock and awe off the air, overwhelming force. That sounds like what they want to get. So my question is, how does that not turn into Afghanistan Part 2, where we're sort of in this prolonged theater of war?
Corey, they don't want shock and awe. They believe that we're weak. They believe that we're not going to respond proportionately. The way you stop it is decapitate them. Look, we heard the president say that we've contained them. They've contained us. And they're going to bring the war to the streets of this country if we don't take swift action.
Robert, I want to ask something that I thought was interesting in the piece that you wrote. You talked about ISIS being afraid of something. What is ISIS actually afraid of?
Well, one thing that seems to be frightening them is how many people are fleeing the borders of the so-called caliphate, because obviously that shrinks their tax base as well as their recruitment base. So they seem to be very concerned with the number of people who are leaving and doing everything in their power to scare people away from attempting to leave.
Yeah.
That strikes me as one of the major things they're afraid about, is all the people who are running away from the Islamic State.
And as far as money goes, the money is getting slower. It's not coming in as easily. Yes. So my question to you, Lieutenant, then, how do you take what they fear and use it against them to actually win this war?
I say again, these people are crazy. Like you said, they don't care about who they kill. We've got to hit them, and hit them hard where their head is, and their head is in the Mideast. You got to knock them out. That's what Putin's doing. That's what the French are doing. We have to step up and do that, because, Corey, frankly, these people are, if they're not here yet, and I believe they are, they're coming. And you asked me a question: do the people of this country have the stomach to go into a war in the Mideast? My answer was what? Do we have the stomach to see Americans die in our streets? Take action now. Decapitate them now.
All right, Lieutenant, thanks so much for joining us. Also, thank you for joining us, Robert, as well. Some fascinating things in your article. You want to find more about